Hey everyone, welcome to today's tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to do a quick intro to Hugging Face datasets. So first of all, what is Hugging Face datasets? Well, datasets is a library for easily accessing and sharing datasets and evaluation metrics for natural language processing, computer vision, and audio tasks. So essentially, datasets is a very powerful tool that we can use out of the Hugging Face family of tools. And in specific, this is very useful in terms of natural language processing. And that's something we're going to showcase how to do today. So here is the challenge. We have two datasets here from the Yelp dataset on Kaggle. So one is the reviews dataset. It contains a lot of consumer reviews regarding restaurants and businesses and stuff like that. And in this data set here, we have the text of the reviews, and also for each review, we have the associated business ID that the review is related to. On the other hand, we have another data set that is the businesses data set. In this data set, you have the business ID and all kinds of other attributes regarding the business. And on the other hand, there is a specific attributes column. It has the restaurant's price range specific attributes contained in it as well. So here's the challenge. If we are to build a machine learning model that is going to make predictions based on the customer review regarding the price range, then somehow we need to combine these two data sets together. And one way to do this, if you know SQL, it can be really easy, because you can kind of join the two data sets together based on the common field that is business ID. However, the unique challenge here we're facing today is that one of the data sets here is fairly large, and you wouldn't be able to load the data set into pandas and then very easily join it that way. Instead, we'll have to leverage the Hugging Face datasets library. So that is the plan. Let's get started. First of all, we're going to import all the needed libraries. Here you see we're importing datasets. That's exactly what I was talking about, Hugging Face datasets. And then we are going to take a look at the reviews dataset, which is the larger one. Let's see how large the dataset is. So it is 5 gigabytes, pretty large, because if you want to load this data set into memory, it is not going to let you. Even though when you look at here, you see that you have 13 gigs of memory, it's not going to let you do it. This is because when you use pandas to load a data set into memory, it's going to use way more memory than the actual size of the data set. So in this case here, even though it's just 5 gigs, it is going to use a lot more than 5 gigs. So let's give it a try to see what's going to happen. All right. So this is going to take a little bit of time. So let me just pause here, and we're going to come back once this is done. Okay, this is all done. As you can see here, it's saying your notebook tried to allocate more memory than is available. It has restarted. So this is not going to work. We'll have to use the datasets library to load the pretty big data set. Okay, so let us now start again from the top here, and we're going to do this again and this, and now we're going to skip this. So instead of reading the data set using pandas, we're going to use the datasets library to do this by using this load dataset function. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's see what's going to happen. So great, it seems like it's not erroring out. It is doing its work. It is going to take a little bit of time, because remember, this is a fairly large data set. It is going to take a little bit of time for loading this in. Again, we're going to pause here, and we'll come back once this is done. Okay, great. This is all done. As you can see, now we've loaded the data successfully, and we're not using all the memory. So that's great. So next, we are going to explore some functions that we can use to look at the data set. So first of all, if you are familiar with the pandas, there are similar functions. For example, in this case here, we can use the info method to check the general information about the data set. Let's go ahead and do that. So you can see there's a lot of useful information. For example, you can look at the different columns in here. It's called features. And then there is also other kind of useful information. For example, maybe the size of the data set and so on and so forth. And you can also look at the shape of the data set. As you can see, there is more than 6 million rows of data in here. So that is indeed a pretty large data set. And then we can look at the column names by using this column names attribute. So these are the column names. And then similarly, we can check out the features as well. And the difference between the features and column names is that it gives you a little bit of more information in here. As you can see, it tells you what data type you have for each of these features instead of just the feature names. And next, what if you want to take a look at the, let's say, the first row to get a sense of what the data looks like? Well, you can do this by using indexing. We're going to index into the first element, and then we're going to print it out. Okay, great. So we can see this is how the data looks. Okay, and next, what if we want to check out the top 5 rows? Can we do this? For example, like this, right? Well, it shows us the data, but this is not exactly what we want, because essentially what we want is, for example, each element on its own row or element by element. But here you see everything is all together. So under this column, you have all the information, all the data, and then so on and so forth. So this doesn't work exactly the way that we want it. Instead, what we should do is something like this. So we can use the select method on the dataset object. We can say select, and then we can give the index. So in this case here, I'm going to use a range. I'm going to select the first 5 rows, and then I can iterate through all these 5 elements or 5 rows, and then I'm going to print each one of them out. Okay, perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. You see, this is the first row or element, and then you have the second one, and so on and so forth. And now, it's common that when we explore the data set, we want to start with a smaller data set so that it takes less time. And in this case here, let us just select the first 100 rows of data, and then let us do some experiments here. And once we figure everything out, we're going to just run this through the whole data set. Okay, so we're going to select the first 100 rows, and then in here, what I'm going to do is I don't need all the columns. Instead, I only need 2 of the columns, just the business ID and the text, right? So I'm going to look at the smaller data set we got from above, and I'm going to now use the remove columns method here, and I'm going to specify the column names that we want to remove here. And what this is doing is that we are going to remove all the columns other than these 2 columns. Okay, so we're going to do that. Okay, perfect. Now, when we look at this, we see these are the only 2 columns left. Perfect. And there is another very handy method on the dataset object. It is toPandas. This allows us to quickly look at the dataset in a very user-friendly format, i.e. the pandas format. Okay, perfect. So this is what the data set is like at the moment. And next, I'm going to do this over the whole data set. And we are going to save this processed data set to the disk so that later on we don't have to start from scratch every single time. So this is going to take some time. And I'm just going to skip to the next one here as well. And I'm going to pause again, and we'll come back once everything is done. Okay, great. This is all done. Now, when we look at this, we can see that the data set has been, all the columns have been removed, and we've saved the data onto the disk. And now we've reloaded the data set again successfully. And if we look at the first row of the data, we can see this is what the data is like, and we have only 2 columns. Okay, so that's everything we have for this session. And in the next video, we're going to look at how to prepare the business data set and how to join the two together. See you next time.